Hi and welcome to Dynamics Update. And today is one of these interview episode. And with me, as usual, I have my dear colleague Gustav. Hello, Gustav.
Hello, Johan. How are you tonight?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm very good. And I also have a person who is, I would say he's a legend, but I would start by saying we met in a fairly strange situation because we were both invited to speak in Lisbon at a conference. So when I came into the hotel, they told me in the reception that on my floor there is a wellness center, a gym. So you can go there and you can train and you can work out, and there is a sauna and things. So I just walked by the sauna, the gym, and I checked the sauna. And all of a sudden there is someone in the sauna who comes out and asks if I'm Johan from Sweden. And I was like, yes, I didn't know anyone knew me here. But the guy who was in the sauna is actually the guy who is with us right now. André, please introduce yourself.
Yes, well, thanks for having me in your podcast. It was indeed just a bit strange situation, but at that time in the hotel, I was didn't know when other people would just also arrive, and then I thought, hey, I think I recognize that person. We haven't met before, but then, yeah, indeed, are you Johan? And yes, and then also afterwards we had a dinner, so that was good. But yes, I'm happy to be here. My name is André. I am a Microsoft Business Apps MVP for now 10 years in a row, but I started my career already earlier in 1996, starting with Navision Financials 1.0. A few years later, I looked a bit at Axapta 1.0, which was new, but then we thought, well, that's not good enough. Let's stick with Navision. But a few years later, I switched jobs and started at an Axapta partner, at that moment with version 2.5, which was quite a decent version. And since then, I never left that product, which is now then Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations.
It's very cool. You have a long history. And I think also, just to be clear, when you say legend, I would say also community hero, because I think you are, I don't remember if you or Martin Drab has the most. Maybe you do. I don't really remember, but looking at the summary of the number of replies and posts within the community, I think you and Martin, of course, have by far the most replies. So a community hero is an understatement here. So it's very, very nice to have you here with us and to met you in person as well, and to discuss how the community has evolved over the years. I mean, back in Navision days and Axapta 2.5, 3.0, I mean, the community wasn't really there. I mean, you had these community meetings, right, but it was not really the same. The information on customer source and partner source was what you got pretty much. But how what is your take on how it has evolved over the years? I mean, into the community that we have now. Is that something that can be summarized?
Yeah, I was working at a construction company, where I needed to just find some information. And then I found out about the Dynamics community with a forum. Then I thought, well, I found my answer, but I can also probably try to help and answer some of those questions. And back in that time, I can't remember all the names, but then I started answering some questions and just tried to help people. And yeah, when they said thank you, I liked that. And a bit later, I switched jobs, and then I couldn't log in anymore with the email I had at that time. But when I then met another colleague, he was also previously an MVP in the Netherlands, Dick Wenning. I asked him, hey, why are there only technical guys and MVP? And then he said, well, it's not only the technical persons, but also consultants. And maybe you can become one as well, if you like. And at that time, I was already a bit starting, again, answering questions with just a more personal account, which I could take with me when I switched jobs. And then I saw, hey, you can earn badges. let's try to get as much as badges as possible. And hey, I see also yours, the Gruter, having a lot of badges, and I want to have that number of badges as well. So I started answering questions, also asking questions sometimes, and I enjoyed that part. And then later they just switched it from badges to an points leaderboard, and then suddenly I saw myself in the top, and that was really amazing.
Cool.
I didn't expect that.
No, that's very cool. It's a genius stroke by whoever designed the Dynamics Community's website to implement badges system and reward system. That was great.
Yeah.
But you really, you inspired me as well. I've done my fair share of reading and getting help from community site. I haven't done as near as many, of course, replies, but I've started doing more posts and replies there now, because it's a nice thing to do. Especially, I mean, the major problem is that when you are when you're searching for an answer to something, you're searching for that particular answer, right? And that you rarely find the question. But the least thing that you can do is that whenever you find an answer to that question is to go back and then, okay, I couldn't find an answer here or here, but now I got an answer. Then you can actually go back and look at the guys that didn't get the reply and help them out. So that's something that you can do, because normally you get kind of stuck on just trying to look at your answer, and then when you got it somewhere else, or you tried around and magically fixed it yourself, then you kind of move on, right? So keep bearing in mind that helping a lot of people by putting, even if it's not a verified solution, put something that might point them in the right direction. It's also helpful. So it's really interesting. I think coming from, and we've discussed this a couple of times in this podcast as well, the differences between before and now. That now it's more information and more like a more thriving community, of course, but it's also harder to search and find information, because it's both because of the name. If you search for Dynamics 365, who knows where you end up? I think I said last time as well, I read an article that I thought sounded very, very interesting. And it's like, okay, yeah, this sounds good. I got to the middle of the article before realizing it was on Business Central, because they are very similar, right? So it's hard. You need to know a lot of things before you can actually gain the information. We have Yammer, not Yammer anymore, Viva Engage, of course. A lot of good channels there. We have community, and we have the official documentation, which is also a very, very great resource nowadays. So how do you in any day, what is your average post in the Dynamics communities?
Well, I just check once or twice a day, are there any new questions, or are there questions which I try to answer, but there might be some follow-up questions. Then I can just easily spend 1.5 hour in a row just to look at what was there, but not only answering, but also reading some of the questions and which got answered. Also to learn myself. That's just the great thing of the forum. You can try to help others, but also when someone replies, you learn from them. And even sometimes there are topics with certain things in Dynamics which I was not really aware of. Then I think, well, let's bookmark this page and come back later if there's any reply. And if there was no reply, then I thought, maybe I can start investigating myself. And then just by playing around in the application, you again learn a lot. And at the end, I was also able to help such a person with just, hey, I've just tried out certain things, and maybe you can look at this little setting.
Yeah, it's really cool. Learning while also helping.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things that you and I discussed the last time we spoke was regarding something that I think is a bit strange, that it's not being used that much. But I wanted to check with you, and that's something called community-driven design or development. So I actually heard from someone at Microsoft that it's basically not being used at all. And I am a bit confused on why. Maybe you have some insights. I don't know.
Yes, I signed up for the community-driven development myself as well. And I thought, well, I found a bug. Let's try to submit it. And at that time, I was not fully able to just connect all bits and pieces with their servers to get the latest and do also some coding. So I suggested like, hey, this is the problem statement, and I think this piece of coding needs to be changed to this part. And then it got rejected. It worked, but I did something a bit different than they expected about checking a configuration key. They said, well, this is not what we want. And then they just fully stopped it instead of let's discuss it and then try to solve it and find a solution together.
Okay, so it was kind of first rejection.
Just a year later, it was at the end reported by many more customers, and it got fixed. But at that time, my experience was like, hey, I would expect a bit more discussion instead of just rejecting it without a more clear reason or possibility to just discuss and think about it. But one thing what is really good about that community-driven engineering is a submission from Kurt Hartlevik. He did create some non-exist join functionality on the advanced queries in AX 2012. Yeah. And he thought, well, let's try to use extensions to build it in Dynamics 365. But he got stuck. And then with the help of Microsoft and the community-driven engineering, they just embedded it in the standard. Yeah. That's at least one thing I know what is good from that program.
That's really cool.
And I'm still using it almost weekly, the non-exist join. So, Kurt, if you're listening, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Thank you, Kurt, for a lot of things, a lot of good topic content coming from Kurt in the retail area, specifically from my part. But that's, I think that the idea of CDD, if you love the abbreviations, is really great. I mean, if it's not working the way you describe it, who knows? It's a matter of time or dedication, or it might be. But on the other note, we now also have a lot of sharing of these things publicly available on GitHub. There are a lot of examples. I've seen a number of them from an integration perspective. I saw one where you build a business event around recurring integration, so you can actually orchestrate stuff around. It was really nice. Like, again, building on top of the community discussion where we can maybe answer or fix a specific issue, where you actually share, I built this, it makes my life easier, it makes my life, it helps me a lot. I saw Doccentric does the same on their website as well. The whole sharing part is, you can also leverage on that, of course, but then it becomes that someone then needs to implement it, and they need to raise it depending on where you're at. Sometimes it's easy because you can put it in yourself and like reason it, but if it needs to be like a business case around bringing in code, then it might be hard to sell. So it's I think it's great that we have both CDD. I haven't had a chance to try it out myself yet. Haven't seen the use case for it. Maybe the form we discussed, Johan, that might be something we can put into CDD. One of the more frustrating parts about working with integrations in DMF is sometimes there are many cases where you can I really don't like this. You have to refresh the web browser. You lose like 2 seconds every time you work, so it becomes frustrating, right? So we discussed building a specific button. I'm going to build it in our own internal dev environment. I'm going to call it Johan's button. I'm just going to publish it on GitHub. Yeah, publish it on GitHub and let anyone who wants it take it, as long as they give credit to Johan for coming up with the idea.
That's good. But I actually think that there is one thing that is good about it, even though it's hard to get things in and it's hard to get someone at Microsoft listening to what you send in and get it approved. I think the good thing is that there is actually a way to do it.
Yeah.
Which means that, because the problem before was that even if you did find a solution, there was actually no way to submit it to Microsoft. There was no way to get it into Microsoft because there was no way for them to take your code in a way that was with all of the legal requirements, because you probably, like when you sign up for community-driven development, you sign a certificate, a waiver for Microsoft, which means that they are allowed to take your code. So I think the good thing here is that if you get a sponsor within Microsoft that is actually interested in getting this code into the product, then there is actually a route in. There is a way to get the code to that person without copy and pasting it and sending it in an email and pushing it in.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. It's a nice idea, but it's like you say, Andre. I mean, it's hard to know what was the case in this time. If there's a problem, there must be a lot of. I often work in a gatekeeping role for Dynamics, where I have to look at anything I let through is on my responsibility because it can break stuff down the line. So. And that makes that's like times 100 when it comes to Microsoft. So I understand there are many like gatekeeping things in place. But as you say, it would be interesting to at least have a discussion or to kind of see why was it rejected and will it maybe come later on, something like that. So it's not just so it's more clear why it's not being put in the backlog at this stage, perhaps. So some room for improvement, but the idea is really great. It would be nice to get some like facts, how much code is coming through CDD, I mean, in the standard application in total.
Maybe I will just check it again.
Yeah.
Just I have another bug, which I think we can try it again. But the real good thing about the community-driven development would be that, if you look at the history, AX 2012 and previous versions, you could just overlay and thought, well, if I create a support case, it will take forever to get it fixed. So I will do it myself. And well, every partner or around the world did fix it themselves, and multiple times, multiple things, but also customization in it. What made it also really hard to do any upgrade later on of the code. Yes. And now everything is extension based. So if you want to do certain things like fixing things which effectively should be done via an overlaying, then the community-driven development would be the perfect solution, just to work together with Microsoft and not only fix it for one customer, but directly fix it for all customers around the world.
Yeah, exactly. I think it resembles a lot. If you have a good ISV, I mean, the ISV story is kind of the same, where you get a lot of code and functionality. And if you find something that's not the perfect match, if you have a good discussion with your ISV partner, they can implement it and put it into their products and put it out there. But that takes time, right? So it's been the scenario a number of times where we build something because we know they've committed to it and it's going to come down the line, maybe like 6 months from now. Until that point, we do it like this. And when the product release comes, then we kind of roll back our customization because, as you say, in the end, what we want to strive for, especially now, is like a low extension, low customization environment for maintainability purposes. But at some point, you have to fix stuff or make sure that it works for your scenario. But as long as you can use CDD for standard, maybe you can put your little fix into CDD, and even if it's not in now, it might come in maybe, let's say, a year's time, and then you can pull that customization back then. So it's not unwise to try.
Yep. Well, I will try it again. Yep.
Yeah, good.
And I would also like to raise another thing, and we have had this up on the podcast before, but there is also another community that I would really like to raise, and that's the Yammer community for especially for the preview program. If you are working with Dynamics and you at least in some kind of a technical situation, but also in a functional situation, I would really, really recommend you signing up at insider.dynamics.com, because then you will get access to the Yammer forum or the Viva Engage forum, and the good thing there is that even though you get information from people from Microsoft, you don't always get answers from Microsoft, but there are other people there that are really, really good at what they do. So if you don't get an answer from someone at Microsoft, you will probably get an answer from someone else. And if you get enough comments on your post in Yammer, then probably someone from Microsoft will see it as well and will be able to comment with you. Yeah. So that's also one of the at least my main communities that I use for figuring out.
Here. Especially for the preview programs, I think that's where they really kick in, and you need to be mindful as well, because if you go there with like a a use case or a scenario and ask a question, you will be connected to Microsoft, or a lot of people coming to you with questions, which is a good thing, but you need to be prepared for it, because the same time as you want to just maybe find answer to a question, you will be involved and expected to meet up that time as well, which is, for me personally, that's great. I think I had an experience with like inventory visibility, Synapse Link, that the more you invest in those forums, the more time you get back and the more knowledge you get as well. There's a lot of people working right now on a lot of exciting stuff. So the Viva Engage forums are really a good channel to stay up to date and to get the latest updates.
Yeah, I can concur that. And I try to keep up to date with some private programs, not always being able to just try out, but also just try to read and already learn, and maybe also share some thoughts with Microsoft. But there are certain groups also related to security, which is also one of my favorite topics. And then when there's a question over there, then you don't indeed, what you say, don't see Microsoft commonly commenting on those questions. But then it's also me and Alex Meyer who just try to help over there.
Yeah, that's really cool. I don't know why they changed name to Viva Engage, and now we also have the new Entra ID instead of Azure ID. Right. So we live in a world with ever-changing naming names. Need to stay on top. But I think the URL I use is still Yammer, so we'll see how long that stays. But
no, I try to use just Viva Engage now and Entra ID. I think that really makes sense, because they already had some more functionality around the access and identity management. What was more the Entra, and just to rename it to Entra ID, that's I think that's a good move. I can understand that one. But Viva Engage sounds a bit more silly, but let's try.
Johan and I both work at a company called Engage, so we're actually very happy.
Absolutely.
Did you have anything to do with that? Yeah, of course. It was just us.
Yep.
We were the only drivers behind that decision. Of course. I saw another post on speaking of channels. I also use Twitter, nowadays X. Of course, it's one of my
name change. Yep.
Yeah. I was speaking about name change exactly. I think it's a good channel. I use it like 90% for work. It's more Dynamics account, so the algorithm is really peaked for me there. X. I just get a lot of Dynamics content on X, which is good. I saw your post there on the process mining, which also is the topic. I think we mentioned it before. We specifically in the release pod. I don't remember which version it was, when the supply chain process mining integration, or the telemetry for supply chain and process mining. We discussed it briefly, but you published a blog post, and you're going to publish some more, I think, on the area in itself, process mining, and maybe correct. Specifically Dynamics. Can you tell us a little bit something about that?
Yes. Well, actually, about a year ago, I just already start investigating what is there available in Power Automate for the process mining. Just played around, and hey, there's a nice graph, but how to get the data in. Read some more on the internet about what is an event log. Then you should have a case ID, an activity description, and at least a start date time. So played around a bit more, but actually I was already aware that Microsoft would acquire another company, which was also involved in process mining, and they just announced around that time that they acquired Minit and would integrate it also, just use the desktop version with all kind of additional features, together with just the cloud storage in Power Automate for the processes. We also thought within our company, well, what can we do with it, and what type of solutions? Then I created a small example with just how to get data out of finance operations formatted in an event log. At that time, I used an Power Automate flow based on a business event and filled a Dataverse table and used that Dataverse table as input for the process mining. But you could also think of, well, let's export the data then to a data lake and use that as one of the data sources. But now, indeed, interesting, what Microsoft did is created a kind of full integration between finance operations and process mining for the warehouse management part. I also just looked at what they did over there. Just for the user interface, it's really easy to just create a process out of finance operations and start investigating in the process mining part. But also in one of my blogs, I will write more about it. Just one of the topics would be indeed, hey, how to create your own event logs. Also, the warehouse management, I will show how that works from the functional point of view, but then also a bit more from the technical point of view. And then would be also the question, what to do with an end-to-end process like the order to cash. And then it's not just events. Then you need to just look at a lot of tables and try to connect them and get then your process visualized. But that's a bit of the end goal to go until just I'm able to do something with that process. But that will be just post by post and also explaining it from the start and try to get people just then also a bit on a higher level themselves. And I'm also not a data scientist, but try to help each other to know more about the process mining. And when we have that a bit ready, then I will also try to just show some other cool stuff which is there in the desktop version of Minet. So a lot to do on the process mining blog series.
Yeah, it's very cool. I haven't tried that myself as well. I kind of visualize specifically from my warehouse, because I used to work at the warehouse as well. So it's kind of nice to see how dynamics, and when you work with implementations, I visualize this dream scenario where you can have an actual map of your warehouse with you kind of map out the locations, and then you do process mining on those, so you can really see where the efficiency of the warehouse is how it's working in an optimal way. I used to do some AutoStore implementations, where the little robots that shuttles back and forth. I didn't do those implementations. I just did the dynamics part of it a little bit, tiny bit over here. But those guys always came with this really cool the software that they built on their own, like Lego kind of software where they can visualize a warehouse really quickly and how it flows. And I always thought that was really cool. So I wanted to do the same thing from a dynamics warehousing perspective. I really hope I can do that now. I'll wait on your blog post, Andre, and hopefully I can get some knowledge about the area.
Let's try to find out where are the bottlenecks in your warehouse.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's really cool. And it's a very demo-friendly thing as well to highlight. I'm not a data scientist either, but like understanding the basic concepts here, and then maybe putting that in the hands of a data scientist to give you the data points, and putting it in the hands of someone who understands the process. And those two can work together. They don't need to speak the same language, as long as you can visualize it, hopefully. It's a very cool topic.
Correct. But apart from just looking at the data, maybe it's sometimes also just good to look what's happening in the warehouse itself. Instead of just looking only at the visualization map, then you also notice what might go wrong.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly right. Otherwise, you always measure KPIs, like a number of order lines picked at any given minute, etc. Now you can actually see, like, in a hotspot. Hopefully, that's my dream, at least, to see in a visual, in a physical map. But it could be just as important, of course, doing it in other scenarios, like financial processes. Are we spending 2 days waiting on something that could be maybe more streamlined? And I think this is a very good area to bring into dynamics. The more we can work with the actual telemetry within, like application insights, put that into and not have to do all the data mining yourself. I think that's a really good selling point to start using the software. I haven't looked at the licensing costs or how much this actually costs, but I would imagine the savings that you can get on just making a more efficient process would be beneficial.
Yeah. I'm not talking about the licensing yet. Maybe I do in the blogs, but there's some information on the internet, just what is the price of the process mining. And it is actually with some more basic subscriptions, it's part of Pyroautomate.
Okay.
And there's also an enterprise, but then you should be really getting the value out of it. That it would be just kind of premium. And I don't know if that's the real correct word, but then it is a $5,000 per tenant.
Okay. Yeah, but still, that's not looking at the bigger picture. If you can get some real business value out of it,
Correct.
then $5,000 isn't that much in that scenario. It all depends on how much time you need to invest on top of that to get it to actually fit your scenarios, right? So, so really looking
Actually,
forward.
I don't think a nail studio at the corner of the street would be able to spend that much of money.
No,
But
of course.
they also don't have the requirement to
No, exactly. And I mean, looking at Dynamics ERP, where we come from, it's normally. I love that coffee. There was someone. Speaking of X, there was someone. I don't remember who it is now. So if you're listening, maybe help us out. That had a coffee mug that had like, I think it was Dynamics, or it was another ERP. Like I do ERP, super complicated ERP stuff, something like that. That's the best way I could describe to my kids what I do for a living. I do super complicated stuff. They wouldn't agree, but at least if I have a coffee mug that says it, then maybe it's true.
Yep. So I am thinking that we are actually ending up on our target time of around half an hour. André, do you have any closing words for today?
Actually, the community, we just briefly touched it with the forum, a bit of blogs, but yeah, there's so much more. Also, just a lot of video contents created by a lot of volunteers on the internet. A lot of webinars, but also events. And on those events, also a lot of great speakers will just share their experiences with the products. And I hope to meet a lot of people again on such events in the future.
Yep, I can also shortly just mention there is another community that it isn't quite that obvious, and that I know that Gustav has brought it up before, but all of the Learn pages are actually connected to GitHub, so you can actually comment on the pages and suggest changes and editing and so on. So that's also sort of a community that I would like to raise, that you can actually be part of. If you're not part of the coding, then you can actually be part of the documentation of the system. So if you find something that doesn't work correctly, then you can add it to the documentation and create a pull request, and then we'll be added to the Learn community as well. So I think that's really good.
And I think this what you said as well, Andre, there on the community side. I mean, if you do, at least let's all of us that work with Dynamics make an effort to make at least one more post or reply to a community, someone reaching out for help. If everyone does that, then everything will be even much better. I don't think we'll reach, or at least I won't reach Andre's number of posts in the near future. But the more we can help, the better. So as I said in the beginning of the forum, in the beginning of the podcast, when you found an answer to that question that you couldn't find an answer on the forum, remember to go back and actually just write. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be like this essay. Just write, yeah, I did this and I think it fixed it, because most of the times that helps someone out, or at least points them in the right direction.
Yep. And if someone asks you for help with something and you figure it out, write a blog post instead of sending it in an email, because then at least someone else can get access to it as well. I think that's also a good thing. Yes.
That's correct. I also just got sometimes a colleague coming to me and say, "Hey, thank you. I found an answer for you from you on the internet, and that helped me." That's
exactly.
I have actually done that myself. I've searched for something and found my own blog post on it. So I didn't remember that I actually solved it once, but now I know. So that's good.
Indeed, I have the same experience a few months ago. Then I think I know something, but I can't remember all the details about this error. Searched on the internet, and then I found my own post. So,
that's good. It's a bit weird, but it's good. So yeah, but I think with that, we would like to say thank you, Andre, for joining us.
Thank
it's
you
been
so
an honor
much
to have you here. As I said in the beginning, you are a legend in the community. So I really think it's a great thing to have you here and to know you. And I hope to see you soon at the conference or something. And with that, have a nice evening.
Thanks for inviting me, and all have also a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.